Good morning. Welcome to Chapter 17, which is about markup. It's a tool for promoting self-monitoring of reading comprehension through an online learning environment. And this is an Australian study that was conducted in 2010, and it's for second year undergraduate students who were majoring in information design, and it was a cohort of 26 students. The chapter focus is how to demonstrate markup. It is a self-monitoring tool to promote metacognitive reading and comprehension skills, and then to transfer to the domain of problem solving in an online learning environment. Students, or the premise here is students who are entering tertiary institutions, they're at the point where they're reading to learn. There's a high dropout rate for adult students with poor study skills. So when they venture into the online learning environment, the dropout rate is even more paramount because they're not prepared. In addition to that, there is not a lot of mechanism in place that will help them to be more successful. The premise is that they are adult learners, they're ready for this higher level of learning, and they should be functioning at that level. However, on the contrary, that's totally not the case. At the end of the secondary education, the statistics in the article states that only 40% of these students were identified as proficient at the level that is required for higher level of cognitive processes. Two of the main caveats to this chapter was self-regulation and metacognition or metacognitive skills. They're saying self-regulation is needed for comprehension to take place in the reading of college level materials, and they went on to define self-regulation as the infusion of skill and will, and they also defined metacognition as being aware of one's own thought processes and being aware that they're aware. However, most students are not aware that they're not aware. So that's something that we need to be cognitive of when we're designing lessons for these students. Here's a model of what a self-regulation for reading comprehension looks like. It focuses on the metacognitive area, the awareness, the reading comprehension, monitoring, support, the strategies, the resources, and the different activities that will engage the learner in the reading process. We also had the markup platform, and that's something that's specifically unique to this project. I've researched it online, but there's not a lot of information out there on it. It's a learning environment. It uses PHP and MySQL for the provision of online reading. It could be summarized, or where the reading in this program could be summarized, discussed, annotated, and give the students the opportunity to share their thoughts, and they use the reciprocal teaching model. It was designed based on the research to provide a range of tools for learners to work with, reading both at an individual and at a shared level. And if you look here, you see the different pictures that were used in the annotation model. This is just uniquely available to that markup platform. It's an Australian study. Like I said, there's a lot of information here, but I researched it and I was not able to find a lot of information. I do believe annotating, note-taking, and everything in the learning environment is very powerful. I did have another program that I use in my reading and study skills class that I teach. It's called MindTap. It's by Cengage. It's very similar to this. When you're reading the textbook, you can do all forms of annotation and interactive activities online. So that's something I would definitely suggest someone looking into. It's called MindTap by Cengage. It's used by most on-course learning textbooks, and it's very similar to this model here used with the markup process. Examples of the markup tool were the problem-solving tool and the summary tool, which I gave you a brief description here. However, there were about 6 or 7 more, which included the posting of the URL, the annotation tool, a forum discussion, and a portfolio, as well as a review URL tool, but I did not include these in this section here. The study, each tool was implemented and scaffolded in a way with the introduction and demonstration of the tool. Students were then given a choice to choose a tool of their choice. The data was collected using various forms such as a transcript, of the work produced in markup, questionnaires about the student's background, as well as interview. The online portfolio provided a comprehensive journal with all the detailed descriptions of the student's work from the beginning to the very end of it, so everything was a comprehensive study. The findings were that the forum discussion tool was the weakest in supporting the reading comprehension, and the reason for that, the forum was just discussing stuff. Students did not use that a lot for comprehension. They discussed, but it was not very good. The summary tool, however, was the most widely used and showed a direct correlation between the reading and the student's self-regulation tool, because while they were reading, they were able to monitor themselves and determine that they were understanding or they weren't understanding. The URL tool garnered moderate support in the relation to the self-regulation and comprehension, because it did, however, prove that students were understanding what they were reading, and they also left comments, but it was not as strongly used, or there was not a very good correlation as that of the summary tool. The annotation tool proved to be the most comprehensive, though, in all regards. And I quote here, by far the most complex form of monitoring appeared to take place with the annotation and the design problem tool. The annotation tool was used to critique and make reading more accessible, as well as negotiated understanding of the key concept. Some of the personal annotations showed evidence of higher level self-monitoring and metacognitive processes where they were thinking at a really higher level. Here are examples of the cognitive levels here where, say for example, Alan, he had a high level of metacognition. He was very good at using the annotation tool. His monitoring was medium. His interpretation level was at a higher level or medium high. However, on the other hand, it shows where someone like Dean, he had a low level of metacognition skill. His preferred tool was the annotation tool. His monitoring was medium. His interpretation was medium. However, if you look at a student like, say, Francis now, he had a low level of metacognition. He used the annotation tool. His monitoring was low and his interpretation was low. There is a lot of note or discussion in regards to why the students were low, the tool they use, and their monitoring and interpretation. And it does say that sometimes the students who were already low, at the end their skills were still low to moderate. However, the annotation tool not just the annotation, the tools in general seem to have helped their comprehension somewhat. However, the students who came in high, such as Debbie, if you look at this, she was high across the board. She didn't have a preferred tool of choice, but at the end, her monitoring and her interpretation tool was just as high. Claire is another example, and Belinda too. They came in high. Claire used the design problem tool. Her monitoring and her interpretation level were still high. So this was more so for the students who were low. It helped them better than the students who had a higher level of cognition. The finding here for the problem solving tool, it ranged from a form of monitoring, namely the explication of design, the reiteration, the application, and integration. And it just broke down how the study found information for the problem design tool. Observation of data within the tool did not provide enough conclusive data, and students who are considered metacognitively weaker use the annotation tool more readily. Here, students who are moderate or weak need an environment more to promote their learning. And my take on this is that some students are not metacognitively aware that they're lacking in some areas and should seek assistance. There are many factors that contribute to the attrition in the online learning environment, similar to that of the physical learning environment. And here are the references, the Dettori text that we were suggested to use. That's where pretty much all the information came from, although I did make reference to Mindtap from Cengage. Thank you for listening to my presentation and have a great day.